Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Sara.
And I'm Allie.
And we are back. We're calling this Season 6 because we did Season 5, we did the World Cup, we took a month's break, and we are back, baby. Season 6, Episode 1. And we're so excited to be doing this.
So excited. I can't believe we're back. I'm so glad we're back. I can't believe we're on our 6th season. Like, it's madness.
It was necessary time off. We were both exhausted from just everything. And I think the best part of the time off was being on social media less. But we're here. We're back, everybody. And I think a great indication of that it was a perfect time away is that we're both, like, itching to do this again. We're pumped.
Yeah, we're so excited to be doing it. We're so excited to be back and like we're feeling it. So hopefully that's going to make for a better podcast. It will make for a better podcast.
Of course. Life updates that you all have missed, even though really you just want us to get on with the soccer of it. And we will. We're about to come on to it. But we're a little further apart now, Allie.
Yeah, which is fine except for the time difference.
It's actually fine for me. We're recording at the same time. It's just a different time in my day now, if that makes sense. So I moved from New York to San Francisco.
Yeah. So yeah, Sarah's gone home. I almost broke my toe. Didn't, but like completely strained it. I will post any gross photos if people want to see them. And then was told, don't play football for like 2 weeks. And then 3 days later, I was playing half of football for Manchester Laces because I was like, sod that.
Classic. As it goes.
Yeah.
As it goes. But we are here just in time for the wild end of the NWSL regular season, which we are about to come on to. The start of the WSL, which kicks off in, under 2 weeks now?
Yep.
We're going to talk WSL transfers, and of course, there's been a lot happening in Spain. We're going to touch on that too. We've got a jam-packed episode for you today for episode 1, so let's do it.
So we are kicking off our first episode back with the patented game of the week, and we are going over to the NWSL for the derby, the clash that is Portland versus OL Reign. This game had everything. It had amazing goals. It had pissed off Sonnet. What more do you want? Becky Sailboat was back.
The Brood. Becky was back, baby.
It was everything you could want in a game. So the Thorns took it 2-0, and it was a crazy game. It was an absolutely amazing game of football to bring us back to the pod.
It really was. I mean, it always is. I absolutely love this rivalry. Anybody who watches the NWSL absolutely loves this rivalry, and I think that the 2-0 scoreline doesn't do it justice.
Absolutely
We're
not.
into like how fun of a game this was, but we're gonna come into the game and game chat in a second. A couple highlights here, though. This was in Portland. It was at Providence Park. I can't wait. I've never been to Providence Park, and I feel like I need to save my journey to Providence Park for a rivalry game between the Thorns and Seattle, because it was bumping in this stadium. Sold out crowd, 25,218. That atmosphere, I mean, it really was like, I don't know how to describe it. It's just different in there.
Also, it comes through. Like, sometimes, like, atmosphere doesn't quite translate when you're watching it on screen, but that is a game that like, I'm watching it on YouTube, and I'm feeling it. I'm getting that Portland, like, pumping when they scored, and the flares are going off, and you can see the flags, and it's absolutely crazy. So you feel that, like, palpitations of the crowd, like the pulse.
You get like the chills and the adrenaline rush, the same as you get when you're watching the World Cup, really.
It was 100%. So I was like, boom for this game. Like,
but this wasn't the only attendance headline from this week in the NWSL. Real quick, Chicago versus Angel City this past weekend tallied their second largest standalone home crowd, and Gotham versus Spirit in New York tallied their second highest regular season attendance this season. So the World Cup bump is real, everybody, but also this NWSL season is, dare I say, the tightest we've ever seen, which is wild considering that we're talking about the NWSL, which is always tight.
Yeah, the NWSL is always tight, but around this time you can normally go, all right, these teams are breaking away to take, you know, the regular season title before you go off to playoffs. These teams are like edging their way into playoffs. At this point, goodness knows who's going to take it, and goodness knows who's going to take the playoff spots because it changes weekly. Like, it's
It really
crazy.
does. Yeah, like this time last year, Gotham was in last place, and they were statistically eliminated from playoff contention. At this point, and we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but whatever. We're going to talk about the table later, but we're already in this. Chicago's sitting at the bottom of the table with 21 points. They're only 5 points out of playoff contention with 3 games to play. Like, it is actually the tightest we've ever seen. So that's lending itself to these crowds getting larger here.
Absolutely. But let's talk about the game in hand. I want to talk all about the Thorns and OL Reign. So, factoid, it is the 38th all-time meeting between these two sides. These two are the OG rivalries. They're the OG rivalries. And, like, I was watching it and they were saying about, like, Jess Fishlocker's, like, this is, like, 15,000th minute of NWSL football. In terms of wins, it's still pretty even. Reign edge it with 15 wins. Portland have 13 wins, and there's been 9 draws in all meetings. So yeah, these are the OG derby rivals game.
Big time. And listen, these are two teams that are pretty much always in contention at the top of the table. Like, North Carolina is a dynasty in this league, but so is Portland, and so is Seattle. So it's always fun, and it's always good soccer. And this game was no different, and let's just dive right into it. We got to talk about Portland first, because you know what, Portland? I've got a bone to pick with you.
Oh.
How dare you make me a fan? How dare you?
Right?
I'm so mad about it. I was just like, God damn, that's pretty soccer.
Damn, Portland are good. Damn, they've got some, like, connections. I'm like, no, I'm not allowed to like Portland. No.
Yeah, stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
Even if one of the greatest US players of all time plays for Portland. But
speaking of, yeah, so Becky was back. Becky Sauerbrunn, this was her first game back from injury. Her previous game was June 3rd, and then, as we all know, then she got hurt. She didn't go to the World Cup, and now she's back, and it was just really nice to see her on the field. That's really all. It's just nice.
We love her. Like, anybody knows, we do love her. And it was quite sweet to see the moment between her and Pino, because obviously this is Pino's, like, farewell tour, because, you know, once the season's over, Pino is done, retired. So it was quite nice to see, like, legend seeing King Legend in game, respecting game.
Yeah, when we talk about Seattle, we'll talk about Pino more. But to stay on Portland, 2-0 Portland, it's hard to talk about this team because you want to talk about every player on this field because everybody played such a good game and there's just rock stars everywhere. So I don't even know where to start.
They were the best team for me on the pitch, like, hands down. Like, it was fairly even, I will say, but then Portland just had this magic, like, just the way they were playing and the way they were connected. You know, from Bixby forwards.
Like I said, I'm annoyed that they're making me a fan. I think Portland, in the NWSL, Portland is the closest an NWSL team comes to, like, having a true style of play throughout, I'll call it, generations of teams. Like, for as long as Portland has been around, Portland plays a certain way. It's like what every club aspires to be, that we know Barcelona is going to play like Barcelona, whether it's in the 90s, whether it's in the 80s, whether it's in 2023, we know how they're going to play. And Portland, it really is the closest the NWSL has to that. And I just love in a league that is pretty transitional, Portland shows that you can be dominant and score a lot of goals and play possession-based soccer, and it can be quick, and it can be fun, and it can be exciting. There's so much here. There's so much here.
Yeah. So I'm going to start shouting out some players. I think the first player I want to shout out is Rodriguez. Rocky Rodriguez is hands down one of my favourite players at the moment to watch in the NWSL. She's exciting. She's up there. She's skillful. You know, she's quick. She's rapid. But then she'll pull off this beautiful piece of footwork where you're like, where the hell did that come from? Like, just stunning.
I think we talked about her a lot after the NWSL championship last year when Portland beat Kansas City, because Rocky Rodriguez is the key connective piece. There's a lot of connective pieces here, but Rocky Rodriguez doesn't get the credit she deserves for being... Coffee is the connective piece between the defense and the offense. Rocky Rodriguez is that piece you need, that number 10 almost, that connects the forward line and the midfield line. And the way she pulls the strings is just gorgeous to watch. I mean, let's just dive into that first goal, because it was because of Rocky Rodriguez.
So it was Hina Sugito got goal number 1, and it was such a team goal. Like, it was such a team goal. So it came from, I think it was a set piece, if I remember right.
It was a set piece. Both goals off of Megan Klingenberg's cross, and frankly, both off of a set piece. The second one was more of like a recycled ball from a set piece, but a set piece nonetheless.
So, Klingenberg, beautiful ball in, goes to Rocky, and then Sugita manages to just put it away.
Well, Rocky Rodriguez, it's clinical. It's textbook. You get the ball at the far post, and she put it across the face of the goal, and she made it look easy. But that is a clinical textbook thing that she just did, and that's almost a perfect extrapolation of like what she is to this team, where she put that on a platter, and that goal doesn't get scored if she's not on that back post.
Correct. So it's beautiful. And like, it threw Seattle, let's be honest, because it had been, but it was like coming, because Portland had been knocking on that door so many times. And when we talk about Seattle, we've got to talk about their goalkeeper. But they've been knocking on door, and then it's just like this little beautiful little slip in.
Yeah, and I think you kind of nailed it, that Seattle looked a little stunned, because we saw them not respond well to that first goal, and just 6 minutes later, Morgan Weaver put away that screamer of a second goal, and I can't wait. We can't wait to talk about her. Let's talk about this right now. It's a one-touch finish. Again, clinical finish.
It's one touch. So it's a recyclable from, as you said, from a set piece, and and she basically gets it across her body. So she's like on the right side, and the ball goes bottom left. Like, the way she shoots this goal, like, no keeper's getting a hand to it. Like, Seattle keeper went the right way, but there was like nobody was touching that ball. Nobody was touching that ball.
I'm saying Portland made me a fan. Morgan Weaver, that girl has made me a fan. Not just from what she can do, because I want to talk about that too, but like her passion. I think that after she scored, I think that the section she was like screaming at, she was like grabbing her badge and she's yelling Portland, and it was just passion coming out. And I'm pretty positive she was screaming at the away section, at the Seattle supporter section, just pointing to her badge and screaming Portland. And she lives for those moments. She's that player that gets big in the moments you need her to be big. And she just elevates, and that's special. And I think, she gets credit, but I don't know that she gets the credit that she gets. She's the second highest goal scorer on this team, behind only Sophia Smith. They even had Sophia Smith because she's injured now. Morgan Weaver has stepped up, and she's big when they need her to be big, and I'm such a fan of her. I'm such a fan.
So let's talk about the opposition. Let's talk about OL Reign, because I think they're going to be very disappointed by that, because it was pretty even, but they just didn't know how to respond to 2 quick goals.
I don't know. I mean, yes and no. I don't think that it was necessarily even. Like, Portland were the better team. They were more dominant. They dominated possession. They had more chances. They had more dangerous chances, and they capitalized more. So across the board, I think if I'm OL Reign, I'm sitting there and I'm saying, you know what? Portland's 4 midfielders compared to OL's 3 basically won and controlled this game. And because of that, OL came in having to know that they were going to win this game on the counter, because Portland's in a 4-4-2, OL Reign's sitting with 3 midfielders. So you got to play on the counter. And they did. They played well on the counter. They created chances, but they didn't create as many, and they weren't able to capitalize on their dangerous ones. And at the end of the day, that's it. They played their game plan. They just couldn't capitalize. And sometimes that happens.
It was frustrating, because they would get forward. The one I distinctly remember is in the first half with Jess Fishlock. And she's in the area, and it's so close. And then she does a dive kick, and completely scuffs it. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Well, she is getting back into it. She's been hurt for a while.
I know, but I was like, what are you doing, Fishlock?
It was nice to see Jess Fishlock on the field again. It was nice to see her and Pino getting to play it together again. Everybody loves the connection these two have. And they haven't been on the field together because of a lot of injuries this season. So that was really nice. But, just coming back to OL, they squandered some of their better opportunities. But I think that it's not a game that they need to hang their heads about. Portland is the highest scoring team in this league. They've got 40 goals on the season. That's way more than anybody else in this league. The next highest is 27. So we knew Portland was going to score. They knew Portland was going to score. And to keep it tight, OL had to capitalize, and they just did. And that's how it went.
Can we just shout out very quickly, following a theme from our World Cup podcast, which is goalkeepers, because Dickey for OL Reign, oh my goodness, because obviously they've lost their main goalkeeper, which we'll talk about when we talk about transfers. Their main goalkeeper's gone Man United. Dickey has played in the Challenge Cup, and she earned her spot. She's played well in the thing. She earned her starting spot because they've lost their first choice. And she was outstanding. The 2 goals, nobody could have got at. They were one of those ones where it just was what it was. But, without her, Reign would have been down 5-0, 6-0, because Portland were, shotgunning that goal and peppering that goal with chances. And she was cool, calm, collecting the ball.
Couldn't agree more. The level of goalkeeping in this league, the plethora of incredible goalkeepers, is at a level I've never seen, where in a lot of teams, the second string keeper is pretty much just as good as the first string, and there's just a bunch of talent sitting on the bench. We've seen it at Gotham. They've got a rotating cast of many young goalkeepers, and everybody's come up huge. And yeah, like you said, continuing on the theme of goalkeeping, I personally thought OL Reign was crazy to let Tullis Joyce go until I saw Dickey perform. And then I was like, oh, I get it.
Absolutely. So the result of that game means that Portland now sit atop of the league, sitting pretty. OL are in 5th, but as we alluded to, that can change in a split second.
It's not a comfortable 5th, but you know what? It's not a comfortable 1st either, but we're going to come on to that. First, let's just quickly touch on a few other games because it was a big weekend. We can't just do one, you guys. That's the big one we're going to do. We're going to spend a quick moment on a few others. And the first that we're going to dive into, because we want to talk about this controversial foul, no foul, San Diego versus Kansas City. I think everybody, obviously all eyes were on this game because San Diego at the time when this game kicked off was sitting atop the table, but playing last place Kansas City, which, mostly they've been bad this season, but sometimes they come out and they're like, oh, that's the team I thought you could be. Kansas City took it 2-1. And we're not going to dive into the game. Like I said, we just really want to talk about this. Alex Morgan got fouled, ? In the box. She posted on Twitter a video of a massive tackle that she was involved in the box. And the Twitter jury is very divided. And we're a little divided on it. So let's talk about it.
Yeah. So I'm going to be honest. So I had 2 thoughts on this. So my first thought was, what the hell are you moaning about now, Morgan? And then I was like, right, let me come out of my Morgan bitterness. How would I feel if this was my team and, say, a Tottenham player had done that to other thing? And I watched it again with those eyes, and I still think, you know what? It's a hardcore challenge, but it's a fair challenge. She gets the ball first. Football is a contact sport, ladies and gentlemen, and all of us in between. You might fall over. So
okay. I will say, when I first watched this, I read Alex Morgan's tweet, and I was prepared to see a nasty tackle. And when I watched it, I was like, that was a nasty tackle. But I appreciated what Alex Morgan said, because I think anybody that's played high-level soccer, a lot of it is anticipating movements. And she basically is explaining in her tweet that she's anticipating that tackle coming in, and she adjusted her movement. So I do think, had she not done that, this could have been a really disastrous injury-making tackle. So I'll say that part first. The second part is, then I was like, this is a little 50-50, because look, we all can see that she does get the ball, right? So then we're back and forth, and I watched it from another angle, and I think here's the key piece. She gets the ball, but she gets the ball with her back leg. Her leading foot hits leg first. either way you cut it, whether you want to call that foul or not, you gotta know. Everybody has to put their hands up and say, this is dangerous.
It's dangerous. It is.
Nobody wants to be Alex Morgan in that situation.
No, it is dangerous. I will give you that. Moving on to the other big game, which was Gotham versus Washington. Gotham took it 2-0, and everybody was excited for this game.
Yeah, Esther Gonzalez, the Spain national team superstar. This was her first start. This was her home debut. Gotham won 2-0. She got both goals. This was a massive game in the table as well. Gotham was sitting in 5th. Spirit were sitting in 6th coming into this game. And quite honestly, I expected more of a game out of this. This matchup has become a really fun kind of like East Coast rivalry because it gets really physical. This game specifically was not. It was like Washington just laid down and we're like, okay, you guys can have this one.
Yeah, but one of the great things was with Gonzalez coming in, it was like Lynn Williams doesn't have to do everything. Because, Lynn Williams, has been, lifting a lot of teams that she's been playing on. And we've said it a million times. But with Gonzalez coming in, it was like, oh, I've got a teammate that I can, bounce off of and,
Oh, it was so fun to see them connect. And Gotham's front line is now Lynn Williams, Esther Gonzalez, and Midge Purse. And
what a lineup.
That's a lineup right there. And to see how they all three have already kind of started to gel. I was able to, ask Esther some questions on the post game, and they were talking about how because Esther Gonzalez doesn't speak English, they communicate with their eyes and their eyebrows on the field, which is really fun. But she was also speaking to how their games really complement each other because she likes to sit in the box, and Lynn is really fast, so she can just beat people down the line and play her a ball in, and it's perfect. And I think it was a great addition for Gotham. I think it's especially a great addition, not just because of the goal scoring ability, but Esther Gonzalez is so great at the hold up play from that number 9 position and being able to come back and hold the ball and allow their team to get forward. And with a team that's missing a lot of midfielders, as Gotham is, no McCall Zerboni, no Christy Mewis, Allie Long was out of the game. They really need that. This is going to be so key for them to continue moving forward.
Which lead us nicely on to Orlando Pride versus North Carolina.
Will any team ever be able to win a Challenge Cup and not have it affect their regular season? Orlando obviously beating North Carolina this past weekend 2-1. Sassy red card in this game, actually, but just at the end of it. So it didn't necessarily affect North Carolina.
Another red card.
Yeah. But again, fresh legs. I don't think that a team will really ever going to be able to do this because of how many more minutes it adds to the legs of your starting 11.
I like the challenge. I like the idea of you guys having this tournament within a season. It's what we do over in the UK. It's what we do in Europe as a whole. But you guys haven't figured out the formula for it yet. So you guys need to work that out. Because once you've done that, then it won't affect. Because you look at Chelsea have done, won the FA Cup and the league in a season. So it can be done. It's just you guys haven't figured it out yet. But it'll come.
Couldn't agree more. All right. And finally, let's touch on this table really quickly because as we mentioned, as we alluded to, it's wild out here. Fun fact, this is the first time in NWSL history that every single team has reached 20 points in a season. The bottom of the table team right now, Chicago, has 21 points. So that is facts to back up our claim that this actually is the tightest NWSL season we've seen, which is really saying a lot. 11 points top to bottom, number 1 Portland to number 12 Chicago Red Stars, and everybody else in between. It is truly anybody's, and one game sees massive movement in this table. Let's go around the world. Around the world, around the world. Let's kick it off with La Liga MX. We are halfway through the Apertura. 11 games of the 17 in the regular season have been played, and here's where we stand. Tigres sit in the first spot with a narrow 1-point lead over second place America. The two teams faced each other just 2 weeks ago, and Tigres won 3-1, pushing them past America in the standings. They will not play head-to-head again, so America will have to hope for the unbeaten Tigres to fall.
Over to Spain, and La Liga Femina, otherwise known as La Liga F, was on strike for the past 2 weeks over unequal pay and treatment. The strike has officially ended as they have reached a minimum pay agreement. While that sounds somewhat positive, the numbers are not. The minimum annual salary in this new agreement for a player in La Liga F will now be just $22,500. For comparison, the minimum salary in La Liga, the men's league, is $197,000 per year. As much as these numbers are disappointing, we do still have to acknowledge some of the progress that has been made, as these players had little to no support before this in terms of pay, athletic treatment, travel, or anything else. As a note, La Liga F is a different body to the RFEF. While the strike was not necessarily related, we can imagine that players are feeling more empowered to stand up for what they know is right.
And over to Germany, Frauen Bundesliga. League play kicked off in Germany this week. The highlight score of the weekend was Freiburg, who finished in 6th place last season, tying last year's Bundesliga champions Bayern Munich 2-2.
And then the date we're waiting for, the WSL will start on the 1st of October, as do most of the leagues around Europe.
Have you checked out Total Football Analysis yet? TotalFootballAnalysis.com provides researched analysis on loads of football games, including women's football. Want to know why Miedemar scores so many goals? Do you want to explore how City have turned it around this season? Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and sign up to learn more about the beautiful game. We have a special discount for listeners of the Women's Soccer Show. At checkout, type WOSO10 to get a full year for €10. That's €40 off the yearly subscription. Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and type WOSO10 at checkout.
As we are just under 2 weeks away from the WSL starting, we are going to talk some big headline transfer news in the lead up to the WSL season kicking off. You can head to our Patreon for a full team-by-team WSL transfer chat. This one, we're just going to keep it shorter and talk highlights, winners, losers, and everything that we feel like is a highlight, I guess. So let's do it. Allie, I'm just going to kick it off. Which team or teams were the biggest winners of this WSL transfer window, and why?
I will get more into it when we do it in Patreon, but I can't just pick one, so I'm going to pick 3, and I'll be very brief. First one is Arsenal, because Arsenal made some moves, and they brought in some players. So first off, before even the World Cup even was a twinkle in our eye, they managed to snatch Russo away from Man United, which was huge.
And United fans are very bitterly happy right now, I'll say, because Arsenal lost in the Champions League, and they're like, no Champions League for you, Russo. But that's okay. They can still win the league.
Exactly. They've got many competitions they can still win. But Russo going to Arsenal is massive. Then, deadline, finale, Cooney Cross has been brought over to strengthen that Arsenal midfield, and what a beautiful signing for them.
Can you imagine she's going to sit in front of Leah Williamson?
Yeah. He's going to have Beth Mead in front of her, going to have Miedemar in front, just beautiful. And then the final one for me on that one is Amanda Ilestedt, the Swedish, technically a defender, but boy, was she scoring goals for fun in the World Cup. So Arsenal, for me, they didn't lose too many key players, and they've strengthened where they needed to be strengthened. Second one for me, another A team, Aston Villa.
They've been making great moves for the past about year and a half now, and this offseason was no different.
And long may it continue. So you start off with huge loss, Hannah Hampton gone to Chelsea, and you're like, what? What's happening there? Literally, day later, it's okay, guys. We have signed Daphne van Domslier, the Netherlands superhero goalkeeper that, wowed in the Euros, had a, steady World Cup, but that is a huge signing for Villa.
Yeah, that was a massive replacement for, a goalkeeper that we all do see as eventually England's number 1 leaving. And they did a great job in replacing her, and that's not where it stopped.
No, because They've signed many key players, but enticing Ebony Salmon back to the UK.
I think this is huge. This is one of the biggest signings of the entire offseason, not just for Aston Villa, but for Ebony Salmon herself.
She started at Villa. That's where her youth career was. She's played for various teams, but coming back to Villa to see what she's going to do under Carla Ward, it's massive.
I think this is going to be great, I just have to say, for her career, too. I really do. She was hidden in the NWSL, and I think that some coaches she played for didn't necessarily know how to utilize her and help her develop as she should be, and I think the WSL suits her play style in a way where she can stand out, and I expect her to grow and to see her on more England rosters in the future because of this move.
Exactly. And then the final one is Adriana Leon, who underwhelmingly underused at Man United. Mark Skinner didn't know what to do with her. She went on loan, I believe, to the Thorns in the NWSL, coming back to the WSL, where she is probably playing some of her best football, but to play in the claret and blue of Aston Villa. Well done, Carla Ward. Well done, because that, her and Darley linking back up, they played together at West Ham, bringing them back together is just going to be immense with Daly up top. So the Villa project is exciting.
The Villa project is very exciting. And on our next episode before the WSL kicks off, we're going to have to, as always, do some WSL predictions and who comes top 3. And it'll be interesting to see where we both put Aston Villa because they can do some serious damage with what's on paper right now. Okay, you said 3 teams. Who's the third winner of the offseason for you?
Man United, I mean, to be fair, on paper, you're like, what the hell? Because they've let go 18 players. That's either through permanent transfer or loan. 18 players have gone. But the signings they've made, first off, they won the race for Mrs. Hour. Everybody thought she was going to Liverpool. It was all reported she was going to Liverpool. And they just swooped in, and she is a Red Devil. Stand out from the World Cup, got the Golden Boot. So to have that firepower up front, when you've already got Leah Galton, when you've already got like Hayley Ladd, and you've got these other players that are up front. Alessia Russo, who? Like, this is a huge signing.
Yeah, it's a massive, and they had to sign a goal scorer. They lost a goal scorer, they had to sign a goal scorer, and they got a great one.
Second one, we mentioned it previously when we was talking about the NWSL, but the goalkeeper, Taylor Strauss, was signed. You feel slightly as a panic buy because there was rumours that Earps was going to go. But no. Earps is staying at least in this transfer window. So you've now got 2 powerhouse goalkeepers.
Yeah, it still smells to me. It still smells to me of, Earps is staying for now. And if I'm Tillis Joyce, I wouldn't have gone if I knew I was going to sit behind Earps for, the next 3 years. If I know I'm sitting for 6 months, I'll go. So, just keep an eye, everybody. Keep an eye.
But it's still a huge signing, and to have those 2 powerhouse goalkeepers in the same team, absolutely massive. And then the final big name signing for Man United has to be Jessie, who's come over from Barcelona. Huge signing for them. Absolutely powerhouse. So Man United in previous seasons haven't really made massive signings, but they've done so well. So yeah, those are my top 3. So it's Arsenal, Villa, and Man United in terms of this transfer window.
I would agree. And who is your loser, or multiple? But who I think it's clear that 1 or 2 teams didn't do what they needed to do in this offseason. Who are those teams for you?
I mean, my big one's Man City. Man City.
It always is in the past couple years.
It's Man City, and the reason I'm saying it is because they've had 1 in, 1 out. So they lost Hayley Raso, which is a huge loss. She's gone to Real Madrid, and we saw what she could do in the World Cup. So the fact that they've lost her, and yeah, they've brought in Jill Rood, who we love and we talk about all the time, but one great player is not going to make a difference. We saw this with Rose Lavelle and Sam Mewis. We saw this with Vicky Lasada and, all these other players that get brought into Man City and not do anything. So having just 1 player in, 1 player out made no sense.
I would agree. I just because I guess I like to be hard on them, and I like to be hard on them because they have they have the funds and they have the ability to be better and they simply choose not to be, I'm going to be hard on Tottenham until they figure out how to sign some better players. Not better, just like more, you just figure it out. And it didn't feel like they even really tried to. It felt like a like for like, similar to City. So I'm going to throw them into I'm disappointed in you column. And yes, head to our Patreon because we dive into every team on that more extended chat. And finally, we can't end this episode without talking about and acknowledging and the massive news of the past month as we have been, taking our time off before we start this new season. Massive news. Of course, everything that's happening with Spain in the fallout of the World Cup. Obviously, this story starts a long time before that. We're not going to go all the way backwards and recap everything, but we are going to say, this is something that we're going to continue to follow as we followed, for the past 3 years. And it's just so big. We have to touch on this because there are more developments.
Yeah, absolutely. So, very brief synopsis for those that have not been following is after the sexual assault of, and let's call it what it is because I'm sick of just seeing the kiss. After the sexual assault of Jenny Hermoso by the Federation chief, Rubiales, been lots of up and down, lots of dominant statements of I will not resign, and then it's like you must resign and I will not resign, and then he did.
A lot of what we knew already about Spain, about the Federation, and a lot of them trying to spin a story in a really disgusting way there's so many levels to this. Again, we're not going to dive into the month of it, but a lot of how we knew the Federation was acting and them simply confirming it on the world's biggest stage. The fact that he was allowed to resign is annoying. Let's continue.
Vilda's now gone. Jorge Vilda, who we've talked about multiple times, is now gone as the coach of the Spanish national team. They've now brought in a female coach for the first time ever.
Let's be very clear here. She was an assistant coach under Jorge Vilda. Her name is Montse Tomé. We've seen this tactic so many times before where federations or bodies bring in a woman into power as a way to make it seem that they're progressive and moving forward. But this is somebody who's been so deeply entrenched in the system that we have no reason to believe she's any better than Jorge Vilda just because she's a woman. And that's deeply upsetting to begin with. And then Spain has some national team games. There's 38 players who have signed and said they will not play for the national team. Tomé makes her selections.
And 19 of them that have signed this letter have been selected.
There are so many things to say about this. 19 of them, like you said, that have signed this letter have been selected. They found out by watching it on TV. Nobody was called beforehand. That's how they find out. And Jenny Hermoso was not selected, quote, as a way to protect her.
The eye roll. The eye roll.
There's still a lot happening, but I think that we are at a really key moment right now because players have just been selected. And I think everybody's just kind of waiting for the players to say, hey, I'm not showing up.
And the latest news that is coming out of Spain as we record on Tuesday is players are now being forced into training camp. But in various places, because some are being out of Madrid, some are a little further afield, they're not in the same place.
This is such an important point to bring up to start with. They are being forced back into camp. And what this really means is that the Spanish Federation has threatened legal action against these players who have been called to camp if they do not turn up. And this could mean anything all the way to massive fines of tens of thousands of dollars. I think it was up to $30,000. Plus, they would essentially lose their ability to play international football for many years to come. And the players released a statement basically saying that what's wonderful about this is that the players are way more united right now. We're seeing a very united front. Everybody is putting out the same statement, and it seems that they have legal counsel because their statement is essentially saying, we didn't ask for this, we don't want this, we don't want to go, but we are heeding the advice of our legal aides, and we will do what they advise, if I'm summarizing the translation of the Spanish statement correctly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it makes me so angry because strike action is, quintessentially part of being human. You have the right to strike. And by threatening them with such harsh financial penalties, you're basically taking away that right. Because as we talked about earlier in the episode, they're getting paid like 22 grand a year. They can't afford a fine of like 300,000 or whatever it is that they're going for. So it's just wrong on so many levels.
It's so hard, and the videos of, all of the players just being forced back into camp are so difficult to watch, and it just makes my stomach churn. We've seen, this is the second time we've seen, I think over the course of the last 12 months, a federation telling their players that they will face legal action if they do not play. The first was Canada, who didn't want to play in She Believes. They were forced to by the federation. Otherwise, it would have been massive legal fees. We saw that, and now we're seeing this. And the fact that that's even come to it twice is absolutely absurd. And it made my stomach churn this morning. And I was seeing a lot online about, people kind of berating players for, folding and going back. And I don't say these words lightly, and I put this out in a tweet, so I just want to say it here publicly too. I don't use these words lightly when I say that to say that is the equivalent of victim blaming. This is an abusive situation that they're in. This is an abusive organization that they're under. And they're doing everything they can to both protect themselves and what they are fighting for. And that's part of what they said in their statement, of that they are heeding the legal advice so that they can reach their ultimate goal and not be absolutely destroyed in the process. This is a very important moment. This is so deeply sad. I've seen a lot of things about, this is legal stuff. So unless we really know the Spanish law very well, it's hard to say what's going to happen. But I've seen a lot of, like in this byline, section B, part C, asterisks at the bottom, like all of these things, there might be a way for the players not to play. No matter what, we're just going to continue to keep everybody updated. And I guess I just wanted to share some recent stomach churnings that I was unfortunately woke up with. There's a lot of tough stuff out there. And this has been a long battle. And I think it's very clear to us that the Federation is showing their true colors if they haven't already in the past. And, like we've said a bunch of times, if they're willing to do this publicly, what are they doing behind closed doors? And so we stand 100% by the players, and this is just so deeply sad. I don't have many other words than that.
I will say what is interesting is there are 3 players that may not have to go because they play outside of Spain. So obviously we talked about Gonzalez playing for Gotham. You've got Lucia Garcia and Alexandre, because they play outside of Spain, and their leagues weren't given enough notice about the international call-up. They can say, we're not letting them go because you didn't give us enough notice, and they legally can do that. So it'll be interesting to see if their clubs will back their players if they don't want to go, and say, well, legally we can keep you, I
certainly hope so. I'm surprised that there's not a legal precedent for players to be able to say, like, hey, well, I was only given 24 hours notice before I had to get on a plane. Also, travel arrangements weren't made for me. Also, I found out via television. So legally, if I find out within this window, I don't have to go. Clearly that's not the case. Otherwise they wouldn't have gone. But I guess that leads us nicely to talk about they're going to 2 different locations. And I think this is really just because the Federation was like, whoopsies, like we didn't have travel arrangements. Let's just get you to where you can get to. It is all a mess. It's all a disaster. And I know we already highlighted in this segment, but, it just needs to be said again. Jenny Hermoso was not named to the squad. They said it was because of protection of her. She put out her own statement, and I'm really glad she did. That basically said, what are you protecting me from? That's not what this is about. And I stand with the players. So it's really nice to see. I think it looks to me like the players are on top of it right now. They've got their union, they've got their representation, and it's going to be a long fight, and the Federation's just making it longer, unfortunately. All right. Like I said, we've got so much. We've got 2 new Patreons for you. I mentioned the WSL Patreon who we have going up this week. There's also another one. I'm not going to say. It's a surprise. Head on over. We'll also post it on social media. But that's going to be really exciting. We are back. That was episode 1 of season 6. After the month off, we're so happy to be back. That was a blast.
Yeah, so good. So glad to be back.
We could have talked for hours, but we're keeping it to this. And we will see you all next Wednesday to talk NWSL, again, WSL predictions, and we've got some international games that kick off next week too, which I'm so excited about. So we're back for the Women's Soccer Show. I've been Sarah.
And I've been Ali.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
This podcast was edited by Monkey Hill Media. Visit monkeyhillmedia.com for more information.